Hey everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive here on The Explainer. I'm so thrilled you're joining me today because we are tackling a genuinely massive subject. We're looking at the absolute architects of our universe. From the invisible forces of gravity, right down to the incredibly complex beauty of evolution, we're going to explore how a very small handful of brilliant minds basically rewrote our entire understanding of reality.
Actually, I want you to just pause and think about this for a second. What if literally 5 people were responsible for almost all of how we understand the universe today? I know, it sounds like a huge exaggeration, but as you'll see, it really isn't. Today, we're counting down the top 5 scientists of all time. We're talking about the visionaries whose ideas didn't just, inch science forward a little bit, but completely change the game in terms of how we live and perceive the world.
The 5 minds that changed everything. Okay, let's dive right in. We've painstakingly curated this list from our source material, really evaluating their overarching impact on modern science, tech, and philosophy. And I promise you, this countdown is packed with some incredible revelations. You're definitely going to want to stick around for the end, because our number 1 pick, the ultimate foundational scientist, might actually surprise you. Now, before we officially kick off the countdown, we absolutely have to give a quick shout-out to the titans who just barely missed the top 5. Because honestly, the stakes for this list are sky high. I mean, consider Marie Curie, a true pioneer, the very first person ever to win 2 Nobel Prizes in 2 completely different scientific fields. Unbelievable. Or Nikola Tesla, the genius whose work with AC electricity literally powers the modern world you're living in right now. If legendary figures like Curie and Tesla are just the runners-up, well, it just goes to show how truly monumental our top 5 really are. Let's count them down.
Starting us off at number 5, Charles Darwin.
So, picture the world before 1859. The sheer diversity of life on Earth was a total mystery. There was no single thread connecting, say, a bird to a fish to a human. But then Darwin publishes on the origin of species and completely shifts the paradigm. He introduces natural selection, this beautifully simple yet totally profound idea that species best adapted to their environments survive and reproduce. It's a concept that shaped all life over millions of years, and it finally united all of biology under one single framework.
And Darwin's impact, it is far from just history. It's literally the active framework of modern science today. Think ecology, genetics, psychology, modern medicine. They all heavily rely on Darwin. Every single time researchers study how bacteria evolved to resist antibiotics, they're watching Darwin's theory play out in real time. Now, our sources do note that there's ongoing cultural and religious pushback regarding evolution, and that is a real conversation happening out there. But strictly within the realm of the scientific method, Darwin's framework remains one of the most rigorously tested and confirmed ideas we've ever had.
Moving right along to number 4, James Clerk Maxwell.
Okay, I know you might be surprised not to see a name like Tesla sitting here, but even Albert Einstein himself explicitly called James Clerk Maxwell the greatest physicist before him. And why is that? Because back in the 1860s, Maxwell pulled off the impossible. Using just 4 elegant equations, he completely unified electricity, magnetism, and light into one comprehensive theory. Just 4 equations to explain how every single electromagnetic wave in the entire universe works? He even predicted that light itself was an electromagnetic wave, which, of course, was proven experimentally later on.
To really wrap your head around his impact, just look around the room you're in right now. Your Wi-Fi connection, the microwave in your kitchen, your car radio, X-rays, radar, every single one of these technologies traces its operational existence right back to Maxwell's 4 equations. It's honestly one of science's biggest injustices that he died at just 48 and isn't a household name. Because here's the kicker. Maxwell's equations led directly to our understanding of relativity. Simply put, without Maxwell, there is no Einstein.
All right, let's move to number 3, Galileo Galilei.
Galileo is kind of unique on this list because he didn't just discover new things about the universe, he fundamentally invented how we discover things. He's widely known as the father of the scientific method. Before him, truth was basically whatever the loudest or most powerful authority said it was. But Galileo, he introduced this radical, crazy idea that we actually need to test our ideas against physical observation and measurable evidence. And if the evidence contradicts the authority, you follow the evidence. It was a conviction that eventually cost him his freedom, leading to lifelong house arrest by the Catholic Church.
But his strict adherence to observation led to some massive innovations. He dramatically improved the telescope, pointed it at the night sky, and literally saw moons actively orbiting Jupiter.
This was earth-shattering stuff, right? Because it proved, visually, that not everything revolves around the Earth. He also systematically described how objects fall and move through space. And that specific observational work, that laid the absolute critical groundwork for the scientists sitting at our #1 spot.
But first, landing firmly at number 2, Albert Einstein. Come on, you knew he was coming. This is the man who looked at the universe and completely shattered classical physics, rewriting the very rules of space and time. Think about 1905, often called his miracle year. In a single year, he published 4 papers that changed the world. He explained the photoelectric effect, which won him a Nobel Prize. He explained Brownian motion, introduced special relativity, and derived the most famous equation in human history, E=mc². And then, just a decade later in 1915, he drops the general theory of relativity, completely redefining gravity, not as a pulling force, but as the actual warping and curving of space-time itself.
The modern impacts of this are just wild. Black holes, gravitational waves, the expansion of the universe, all of it predicted by his math long before we even had the tools to observe it. But let's bring it right into your pocket. Think about your phone's GPS. Because gravity warps time, time actually moves slightly differently for the satellites up in orbit than it does for your phone down on the ground. If your GPS wasn't constantly running corrections based on Einstein's relativistic equations, its accuracy would drift by miles every single day.
Okay, so that begs an enormous question. If Einstein did all of that, if he redefined space-time, predicted black holes, and makes our satellite navigation work, why on earth isn't he #1? Well, it's because there is one scientist whose influence reaches even deeper into the bedrock of reality. One individual who built the very mathematical language that Einstein, Maxwell, and Darwin all implicitly relied on to even do their work.
Grandly taking the #1 spot, Sir Isaac Newton.
Newton is the ultimate architect of the universe as we understand it. He didn't just make discoveries, he essentially invented entire branches of human knowledge out of thin air just to solve whatever problems he happened to be thinking about. Let's just stack these up for a second. Step 1. He formulates the laws of motion and universal gravitation. With just 3 laws and 1 elegant equation, he explains why a ball rolls, why an apple falls, and why the moon stays in orbit. Step 2. The math of his day wasn't good enough to calculate these orbital mechanics, so what does he do? Independently from Leibniz, Newton just goes ahead and invents calculus, handing science the ultimate tool to measure a changing world. Step 3. He passes white light through a prism, figures out it contains all colors, and founds the science of optics. All of this culminating in his 1687 masterwork Principia Mathematica, arguably the most important scientific text ever published. And that unparalleled foundation is exactly why Newton takes the crown. Because while Einstein absolutely rules the extreme boundaries of the cosmos, stuff moving near the speed of light or the crushing gravity of black holes, Newton's physics describes 99% of everything you and I will ever physically experience. The bridges we drive across, the airplanes we fly in, the rockets we launch into orbit, they're all designed and built using the mathematical foundation that Isaac Newton laid down. Even Einstein himself admitted that every scientist after Newton is simply standing on his shoulders.
So that brings our countdown to a close. But I want to throw this right back to you. Who is your #1? Did we get it right? Or do you think Einstein's reshaping of space-time deserves that top spot? Or maybe someone entirely different laid the true groundwork in your eyes? I want you to really think critically about the monumental discoveries we've covered today, weigh the evidence, and form your own conclusion on who truly changed everything.
And hey, if this explainer sparked your curiosity, your journey doesn't have to stop here at all. Our sources heavily reference the profound depths of Einstein's theory of relativity and, honestly, the insane, dedicated life story of Marie Curie. I highly recommend seeking out more materials on those topics to keep building your understanding. Thank you so much for joining me for this incredibly focused learning session today. Keep questioning, keep observing, and I will see you in the next explainer.